You need the source subnet as well as the destination subnet that you want to establish reachability. So, right, sometimes it might be a tunnel that is used to send all traffic, right? A default route pointed to the tunnel, right? Sometimes it might be to a specific subnet only, right? So, a full default route scenario very rare, right? Sometimes there are implementation from branch offices. They use an IPsec site to channel all traffic through the HQ, right? So there are some implementation like that, but ideally that's not the case. You might have two branch offices, let's say one in Mumbai, one in Delhi, and you want to establish reachability from the clients or the LAN network from Mumbai to the server side LAN, network in the Delhi, right? That would be a use case. So, right, the source subnet and the destination subnet is what we want to know, right? And then based on that, right, we will decide, right, what type of routing we would need, right? So based on those destinations, we'll be adding a route towards the tunnel, right, and then deciding it. Then there are also other concerns, right? I mean, when you talk about building a tunnel, you have to think about what is your uplink speed, your internet speed, what is the other end right speed, what is your business requirement, how much speed are you looking to get, right? And you have to consider, right, 20 to 30% overhead that is added by right, the IPsec encapsulation and encryption, right? So does that meet your use case? Sometimes the IPsec might not be right a viable solution. They are looking for a right high speed solution. So sometimes GRE might be the solution, right? Provided that it's all pre encrypted traffic and it's okay to be sent as plain text over the internet, GRE might be suggested sometimes. So in that case, so there are business use cases where you need to consider the bandwidth requirements, right? Then the destination, right? What type of traffic you want to send through the tunnel. Then ideally, the IQ V1 or V2 selection also is important, right? So typically, what is suggested is to use IQ version 2, right? Because of the enhanced security, right? More dynamic or robust features that is there in IQ V2. Right, compared to IQ V1, it's more easier to troubleshoot, right, and easy to work with. So it's not. I'm not saying that IV1 is less secure as, I mean, too weak to be used. Right? Still, people, right, now prefer to use IV2, right, more frequently. And there are also other requirements like or prerequisite where you want to think, right. So when that side to side channel, right, does it have both sides? Does it have a static IP, right? Or is one of the devices between or after an ad device, right? One thing. If one of the branches have a dynamic IP, right? Could be a scenario where, uh, right, let's say there is a branch office which has, let's say, 10 employees and they don't have a static IP bot. It is not cost efficient there, let's say. Right? They're using a public internet connection which has a dynamic IP. In that case, right, you might need to set that node as the initiator always, right? The other side would be kept as passive. So you expect the IPsec always to be formed from the branch office, right? Why? Because from the head office to the branch office, we cannot initiate because the IP can change because it's dynamic on the branch. So the IP allocation part on the right, either of the VPNs has to be a consideration, amount of traffic, bandwidth, what destinations you want to, right, establish reachability, and are there subnets that are overlapping, right? This is good in paper, right? At least I am sure that a lot of you have gone through this question at one point of your time, right? Overlapping subnets in IPsec, right? Very interesting thing. But typically, right, this is seen only during mergers and acquisitions when a company is, right, taking over another company, that this could happen, right? Let's say 170 to 16.0 network is available on the other side as well and they want to establish reachability, then it's very difficult, right? A one-to-one NAT setup, right? Source and DNAT both is needed to achieve this. It's good in papers, but practically, right, it's very tedious to achieve, right, a full connectivity between a lot of endpoints like this, right? And during M&A only, this kind of configuration is done, and ideally after a while they are all migrated to two different unique IP subnets, and these kind of overlapping subnets is completely avoided, which is a huge headache for the admin, right? So I think these are the major things, right? I could have missed, right, some points, right? If anybody wants to add something, right, please feel free to. Yeah. Okay. All right.
CIA in the future, CIA in between. side.
Uh, can you repeat that?
CIA futures, we are building the side to side VPNs.
No, what features are you looking for?
Okay.
No, I'm not able to understand that question. What features are you? CIA, is it? Is it CIA and NCISSP confidentiality integrity part? No, I
We
didn't
can
understand.
use we can
Sorry.
use them in side to side VPN
We can use what?
in requirement like we can use it will be under coming or not because
Is
interviewer
even
asked me this question, so that's why I'm asking.
are you referring to CIAs, right?
Yeah, yeah,
See, that is the CIA logic is definitely there from a infosec standpoint, right? For every traffic asset, right? So, um, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So definitely that comes into play for any type of network resource, right? So you'd want this to be confidential, right? That means you don't want unauthorized users to be right using right or accessing these info. That means those subnets that should not have reachability, right, should not have access. So you should be setting up access policies only allowing to access from the right subnet to the correct destination subnet, pointing it to the tunnel, right? Then the integrity part, right? There should not be any kind of packet modification happening, right, by MIT, man in the middle, right? So the integrity of the packet should be verified. That means that is typically right done using the checksum that is there in the packet, right? IPsec as such, right? It's encrypted payload, right? It does not lose a checksum to see if the packet is right change. It won't be able to decrypt it at all if there is modified. So at least right in the industry currently, right, IPsec decryption functionality is not there. So right, we can trust ESP payloads there, right, and we can go ahead with the use of IPsec so that that is why right all of the SD-WAN solutions are so popular, right? Because we trust IPsec, right, and it is 100% okay to send that IPsec traffic through your internet, right? Because right, it's because of the low phase two lifetime, right? The keys would keep rotating, right, every 1 or 2 or whatever based on your settings. So it's very difficult to calculate the keys and decrypt the traffic. And so MITM on IPsec is not possible. So integrity part is taken care, right? And whereas in GRE, right, integrity part can be a challenge, right? People can right become an MITM and make packet modifications. But whereas the other part is the availability part. That means the resource should be available, right? When you build a tunnel from your right branch to let's say HQ, what if that tunnel is not working, right? So you need a secondary tunnel, right, which is typically something that you do, right? When you create tunnels, you always create in pairs, right, and as an active and a primary and a secondary. So it might be through a secondary ISP if you have, right, or through a leased line, or right, or any other private circuits if you have, right? If not, either end should have right a dual ISP, right, two ISPs, right? If not, with the same ISP, there is no point in creating two tunnels unless it is for load sharing, right? Or basically more throughput, right? Concurrent tunnels that is there. But yeah, that's how availability is taken handle or taken care by primary and secondary tunnels, and basically taking care of tunnel monitoring, right? And ensuring that your traffic switch over to the secondary tunnel in case primary tunnel goes down, right? So from a CA perspective, that is how you would interpret it with IPsec side to side formation. I hope that answers that.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
clear. And
Cool.
uh,
Yeah.
uh, in my in my organization, Palo Alto, like a checkpoint firewall is in. Why do I purchase like a Palo Alto? What the main the futures in there? So, what's the difference between like a checkpoint and Palo Alto?
Yeah. So definitely right. There are multiple. This is a question that right. I think the any sales team would get right. So I have a checkpoint, or I have a Cisco FTD. I have Fortinet, a FortiGate, right? So why would I need Palo Alto, right? So this is more into the sales tactics, right? So there are each vendor has its own advantages, disadvantages, right? There are more features in one vendor, right? Some features not there in. So ideally, Palo Alto is leading the industry, right, in terms of, right, the next generation firewalls, right, followed by Fortinet, right, Fortinet as well, right, and it's a little bit cheaper compared to Palo Alto, right. So they are segment, or they are focusing more on to the small and the mid segment, right, enterprise networks, right, where it is much cost efficient, as well as the large enterprises, right. So there is little bit, right, credibility part, right, or security concerns, right, because of the presence of the China ownership of Fortinet and all, right, all of that, right, the Chinese entity that is there. But typically, what how this works is every vendor is competing, right, with each other to bring in lot of features, bring in more hardware capabilities. So right, at least some of you might know, right, people have read about Fortinet. So Fortinet has come up with dedicated hardware chips, right, to accelerate SSL decryption. So there is dedicated hardware to do SSL decryption. That means the firewall can do SSL decryption, right, at a much faster pace, and it does not put a dent on the actual data plane. So they're dedicating resources for SSL decryption as such, right? And this has become a conversational topic, right, between Palo Alto, right, and Fortinet. Why? Because when you do a comparison, these numbers were showing significant improvements in Fortinet, right, which the Palo Alto is taking care, right, in the next newer builds, right. So always, right, it depends on, right, what model of the firewall vendor you're using, but it boils down to, right, there is hardware, right, things that kind play a role, but at the end of the day, it boils down to what features a vendor can provide, right, what all flexibility you can provide as a vendor. Second thing, how good is your threat intelligence? So Palo Alto has a team called Unit 42, right, doing taking care of the categorization, threat, all of that. So the threat team, right, how good is your threat team, how good is your threat intelligence team, how good are you in creating signatures for applications, threat signatures, how frequently do you offer updates to the customers, right? Is lot of customers already using it, right? If so, right, all of the customer data could be a vital role in providing more signatures, right? The more you have industry presence, the more type of malwares your firewall might be seeing. So, right, getting a lot of exposure, right? Whereas if I, right, come with a new right, firewall brand and only two people use it, I don't have industry exposure, right? So that is also another concern. The other part is the costs. Definitely, right. Companies are looking for ROA, return of investment. So when you give 100 rupees, right, you should get value of that, right? So that is also there. And the last part is, how well does it integrate with your existing infrastructure, right? You can't just buy a firewall, and because the firewall does not right, connect with your current existing infrastructure, you upgrade everything. That's, right, a huge waste of money. So instead, whatever they have, they want to they want a solution that can integrate very well with their infrastructure and make it scalable, right? So the that is um, the integration perspective, right? How well you can integrate with other systems, and how good of a platform you are. Do you give multiple other functionalities? Can you give a packaged offer where you can give us endpoint security, right? Network security, cloud presence, right? All of that together, right? Let's say a SIEM solution, right? Every company would have a SIEM solution, right? So on-prem or a cloud hosted one, right? Or a cloud solution, right? Let's say Splunk Cloud, like that. So, does your vendor give a solution for that, right? For on-prem or cloud solutions, do you have solutions? All of that. So, when it comes as a package, everything is integrated. It's much easier, right? So, there are multiple considerations, right? But I would say the threat intelligence, the integration part, and the costs, these are the main important factors that makes a decision, right, whether it's going to improve the performance, right, how good your threat is. They'll compare, right? So if you don't know that, right, people, no big vendor or big customer is going to, right, fall on the sales engineers, right, sorry, and just going to buy a firewall. They will definitely want to evaluate something, right? So typically what they do is, they give the firewall, right, for 90 days, and keep that firewall in their existing network in a vwire logic or a tamp logic, right? And they just want to see, they will compare the analysis or the right reports from the Palo Alto and the existing firewall, and see is the Palo Alto able to detect more threats than their existing firewall? If yes, yeah, that shows value, right? So typically, large sales happens like this, right? They want a POC or a POV, right? Not POC. Proof of value is something that they need. So POV is done for large sales typically. For small and scales, one customer buying one firewall vendor, right? It might not right. Qualify for a POV and all. But for large sales, always right, these kinds of POVs are done, right? Because they need to prove that customer that hey, this vendor right device is bringing you a lot of value at this cost factor, right? Yeah,
Yeah. In terms of features, what is Vinit said is absolutely right. In terms of features, always look for their new software and what capabilities they provided. Compare with the Fortinet as well, and compare them basically. So I put a link for Palo to have a Nova released, which is 11.0, I believe, which have some certain features like a web proxy they started supporting. That is just one feature. So you can compare these features with the Fortinet and take a decision on feature wise. That's other thing.
great.
Okay, and I could see some people are leaving the session. I just want to know, just want to say if anybody is interested in our private training, you can reach out to us. I put a link in the chat to contact with us. So basically, we are giving a private training for people interested. So it will be starting from next week onwards. So it will be 1 day per week. So total of 25 hours. We'll be covering all features that does not need a license. So like SSL decryption, global protect, and IPsec over BGP, and user ID. These will be we will be explaining the logs and all, analyzing troubleshooting approach in general, how to detect a packet diagnostic safely, and all that you needed to understand that issue or fix them. Just want to point that out.
Okay. All right. So yeah, definitely right. I mean, the focus on right the training, right? I know there are a lot of people giving out training there, right? So what we are trying to focus on is a lab based session, right, where we show you in real time how it is configured, how it is working, right? A little bit inside, right, the firewall, how it works, right? And if something is not working, where should you check? Right? What are the questions that you should be asking when something is not working? Right. So we are focusing on that, right? Why? Because configuring IPsec or right or user ID is something that anyone can do, right? If you have Google, right? There is a ton of KB articles from Palo Alto itself. Just search how to configure user ID agentless, right? There is a detailed step to anyone who can read English can configure it. There is no big deal about it. But do you know how to troubleshoot it, right? Do you know if it is not you did all of the steps, it's not working? Where do you look? How do you troubleshoot it, right? How do you interpret right certain logs, right? So most of the features, right, of the firewall is right free. That means user ID, IPsec, the high availability part, right? All of that is does not require a license, right? Only certain functionalities like you are filtering, right? You are filtering profile assets, right? Custom categories and all we do it, but certain features, right, which requires a license, right, we can't, unfortunately. But all of that, right, would be explained from a lab perspective, right? And we're trying to give that understanding or give you a idea where you know how to approach a problem, right? And it should be from a packet level. So when you take a packet capture, right, for IPS, you should be able to interpret it, right? Or you are looking into an LDAP capture, right, where you have an authentication problem. How do you understand an LDAP bind, right? So why is the firewall not able to authenticate, right? Authentication is failing, right? What do you do that? How do you take a packet capture from your firewall management interface to your Cisco ICE, let's say, right? It's which is integrated through Radius, let's say, right? Or TACAX. How do you do that, right? All of that. So a little bit advanced, right? So we are focusing on that. People are moving on to an advanced level, right? Where you know the features inside out, right? So that's one thing we initially do. And then we talk about troubleshooting it, right? So what all things can go wrong in this feature, right? How do you troubleshoot that? What are the common CLI commands that you use, right? And how do you, right, effectively do an advanced debug, right, if you need it, right? And those advanced debug, right? But I want to be honest here, right? The advanced debug, right? typically for those people who are tech savvy, right? So I know a lot of people who are in operations, right? They might be hesitant to run these advanced debug, right? Why? Because they want to rely it on TAC. But at least you know, right? When TAC is doing something, right? You know what data they are trying to take, right? And you can do your own analysis on that, right? Let them take it, but at least that data, right, is with you, so you can do your own analysis, right? So when you know things inside out, you'd be more confident to, right, do debugs, right? At least from a MSP perspective, you might right, find it little bit, right, difficult to open or raise a ticket, right? Wait for the support engineer, take go through the initial responses, right? Come to a proper troubleshooting session, it takes a day or a two, right? So it might be a priority, right? That's and this might not be working out for you. So in those scenarios, right, if you're confident enough, we should be able to troubleshoot it. That's what we are focusing on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Even when I was working, I sometimes I know some customers know that how to take the diagnostic as well. So some I mean rarely, let's say 1% of the world population, I would say, with Palo Alto customer base, some of them know how to take it, and they basically give us the problematic snippet and tell us to troubleshoot it. So there are only few people know how to do it. These things, these are the points that we are covering here. Just want to highlight those.
Or anyone who has interacted with TAC, that means you working for a company, right, had to raise a support ticket with TAC and worked with them, even from this whole.
Yeah, I mean, it's Chandrasekhar again.
Yeah, Chandrasekhar. So did you ever run into a scenario where you think, right, the support is going on a wrong direction, or right, just wasting your time, right? Sorry to say that, but right, do you had an encounter like that? At any point, do you feel that the troubleshooting was going a wrong way and it is just wasting away your time?
Yes, I did. So there was a ODC in our premises. It was a KLA ODC. So they were having PA 500. So that was end of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so those they have replaced with RMA. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so then the troubleshooting was going in a different direction. So that device which they given, it was not coming up properly.
Okay.
The slowness was there in the device, so they were not able to troubleshoot properly for some days.
Someday, right? So yeah, definitely, right? So at least, right? I mean, in my initial days, at least I had that feeling that I was wasting the customer's time, right? I mean, I'm being honest on that, right? I mean, when I learned Palo Alto, right, I made a lot of mistakes and learned, right? So at that point, I felt, right, as a customer, right, who knows something, right? At least for, right, the US or the European customer, they're more tech savvy. They know these things. They might have 20 years experience, right, in the industry as such, right? So they know, right, how to analyze a pcap. So the captures or what the support is asking, they might have a second look at it. So when you give a finding, they might not think, right, that what you right say is right, right? They might be able to interpret it better than you. So right, in such points, right, if you have, that is only possible when you go into that level, right? So where you're confident enough to right, understand certain outputs, or right, specifically packet captures, which I think is one of the basic things that a network engineer dealing with any technology, routing, right, wireless, whatever it is, security, right, you should know how to interpret a wireless, sorry, a packet capture. When you're presented with the PCAP, I don't know, right, if you've gone through, at least in multiple of my interviews, I've been presented with a PCAP and a scenario, and asking me to, right, tell me what is the problem. What do you think could be the problem if you have a pickup? That is a skill, right? That is only achievable if you go into the roots. You make, right, you become, right, you take that effort to go through the packets, right, analyze it, right, understanding packets from an in-depth level, which would make you go a long way, right? Why? Because uh, every vendor has different working, different commands, but the technology remains the same. At the end of the day, it will go as a packet. So if you can interpret the packet, right, you should be able to, right, do wonders with that, right? And anyone here, right, who's a fan of a Chris Gear, right, who's making videos on Wireshark captures, right, how to analyze it, right? A lot of features, right? The basic features that we use is only the tip of the iceberg. There are a ton of features that you can use on Wireshark. So advanced Wireshark and all, right? If you get time to learn it, right, would definitely help your career assess. Okay, I'll come back right to the session. So open to questions. Right, Jay, do you have a question, Jay? I see the hand raised.
Yeah,
Yes.
like, is there a way in Palo Alto to check the pre-shared key? Means if you forgot pre-shared key, is there a way to check? Like in Cisco, we have.
See, pre-shared key, right? All private keys by default are encrypted. So when if you even if you take write a config output, right, you would see it. It's encrypted, right? The encrypted password hash is always what you see, right? This I had a workaround that I used to do, right? Which is do you know the developer window changing the field parameter from password to text? Anybody is aware of that?
No, not in Palo Alto.
Okay. I mean, I think I used it right some places else, which might have been helpful, but right, I would need to test it if that is possible. Ideally, that is not the case. You've given a pre-shared key, right, and you've already committed it, right? It's very difficult to verify that, right, because it is saved as such, right? So once it is saved, right, it is not possible to see what is the actual key out, right, unless you have we use some kind of HSM and all. Right? Typically,
Yeah.
what we do is we ask the customer to give the key again on both places, right, and commit it. Right? Let's
Uh,
not worry about what it is.
right. And also, I'm not sure whether the dumb command actually, when you do a renegotiation, would actually display it. I mean, I know personally some of that features actually show if you actually, you know, debug in a dumb level.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure. Maybe we have to test it. Uh,
Sure.
yeah. So when we configure it, right, by IPsec, we give parameters on other side, and then we let that, we enable that debug packet diagnostics, and then we let the pan negotiate that parameters. During that time, maybe we can see what's happening. Uh, you know, i- i- Probably there are continuous improvement is done even for the dumb output. They won't show the password, so that maybe it
Right,
saves
right,
it.
right.
We don't know yet. Yeah.
Yes, seen that, but there is encrypted keys, long keys. No,
Right.
that's not
Yeah.
shown.
Yeah. So now they maybe improved that. The recent softwares, I believe.
Right. But I think PA was right, very strict on the security component, right? They
Yep.
always keep that in mind that they don't want devices to be less secure in terms of configuration, even HTTP access, telnet, all of this by default is disabled, right? And you have the advanced FIPS mode as well for right all those FIPS compliant companies as well. So yeah, that's right. But yeah, that is not a big issue. Why? Because you can
Can see
always
that.
set the same value on both, right? If it is not working, it's not working, right? All you have to do is change it, right? And sometimes when you troubleshoot, if the customer is not sure, you ask the customer to just give the preset key on both places, right? Just set it again. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, Muthu sir, you had a question.
Yes, I have asked many people the question, but I haven't got the answer. I mean,
Okay.
which should I understand? Like we know the routing is defined as the longest prefix match.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I don't understand it from what do I should understood from the longest prefix match. What does it mean exactly?
So let me tell you this, right? So let's say you're going to Kashmir, right? And from Rajasthan, you see two roads going ahead, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say you want to go to give me a place in Kashmir. I am not so familiar with Kashmir, right? So let's say
It's in yes,
Leh,
Leh, yes.
let's take Leh, right? So you want to go to Leh in Kashmir, right? Jammu and Kashmir. So let's say you see two roads and you see one with a board saying that it's going to Jammu and Kashmir, and on the other road you say going to Leh. Which would you prefer?
The Leh one.
Correct. Why did you prefer that? Because you wanted to go to Leh,
Yes.
right? So even though right the other road went to Jammu and Kashmir, right? We preferred Leh. Why? Because my actual destination was Leh, right? It that route was precisely matching to what or where I needed to go, right? Whereas Jammu and Kashmir is a global value, right? That means it is not wrong, All right, I still want to go to Jammu and Kashmir, but not right anywhere in Jammu and Kashmir. I want specifically to go to Leh. Right, so the longest prefix match is in something like that, right? You've been you when let's say you are in an office, right, and somebody is calling you, right? Let's say, right, giving there are multiple mudasis in the office, right? So somebody is calling mudasi, right? Ten people is looking out, right? But when the entire the full name is called, right, it's specifically to you. That's the longest prefix match. That means when let's say there are two routes. One route is towards 10.0.0.0/16 subnet, and then there is 10.0.0 slash 24 subnet. So slash 16 means the initial 16 bits are right, matching, or the initial 16 bits is what is the network address. The others are for host. Whereas for slash 24, the network is matching more, right? The initial 3 octets are for the network. So when you say that, the more precise match is for slash 24. Why? Because you have more bits for network match as such, right? So more closer, right? That is what longest prefix match. So if I want to ping to 10.0.0.1, right, it would take the slash 24 prefix, which because it has more bits that is precisely matching for network, whereas the other has only 16. Does that make sense?
Yes, I
Right.
mean, yes.
So it's all right. It's all why we have this kind of logic. Is it's possible to in the networking domain, it's possible to learn routes from multiple sources because of this dynamic routing, right? Same, internet, right? So going to Google, there is not a single path. There might be multiple paths through multiple ISPs. Which route to prefer? Right, which route would be the optimal route? This, so that means your routing table would have information going to, let's say, you, right, the ISP router would have paths towards the Google AS, right, through multiple paths. But which one do you prefer, right? So there is a prefix match, longest prefix match logic. There is a metric logic coming in. So you want to make sure that your packets are going through the best available route, right, rather than right to a secondary route. So the routes are being monitored. If the right best available route goes down, then the next route, right, with slash 16 becomes the best available route at that point.
Mhm.
Vinith,
Yes.
within that, there is one question.
Mhm.
So let's say we going to manipulate metric or with a cost, EHRP or OSPF. In that case, longest metric will be preferred, right? If you manipulate as well.
So when the metrics are same, the prefix match is considered then. Both have same metric. You have two routes with, let's say, right, metric as 1010, right, or 9090, right, or whatever it is. So then it comes to the prefix match. So the prefix match is only applied when you have two routes with same metric,
Okay, okay.
right? So that prefix match is like a tiebreaker, we can say, right? Longest prefix match is only used when you have right to. So if we have a static route and one route learned through OSPF, which route would be preferred? Open question.
Static route will be
Right,
preferred.
static route. Why? Because you are explicitly giving it, right, lower metric there, right? Yeah,
So the first preference will be given to the metric. Then
correct.
it will. Okay.
Right. So the metric would be the primary preference. So when there is two routes with the same metric, right, then it becomes a question: which route should we go? At that point, it will consider the longest prefix match, right? So the Leh and the Jammu and Kashmir logic applies there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
But in my organization, I seen that. So same example, in a static route, I seen the slash 24, but in OSPF, it has given us slash 32. So
Mm.
then it preferred OSPF.
Then it would have
That,
changed the metric. Did you change the metric?
yeah,
The
yeah.
metric would be controlled, right? The OSPF
Yes,
metric
yes.
can be controlled, and it would be lower than the static ones. As I
Static
said,
one.
so the metrics is the first thing. So if I have a slash 32 route learned through BGP, and I have a static route with a slash 24 subnet, but metric is one, right? The static route would be always preferred. If the BGP metric is one, then that is preferred. When you have two routes with the equal metrics, only the prefix comes in. If not, the metric is the important factor that takes a decision, right? So dynamic, that is the idea. Static routes which you explicitly tell the firewall, right? That is static, manually giving. All of that is typically is given more priority than routes which are learned dynamically. So depending on EAGRP, OSPF, or VGP, right? And these route metrics can be controlled, right? You as a right routing admin can make the BGP send out right metrics which are lower. You can control the routing. So I can push a route inside a routing table with higher metric than static. Yes, possible. You can. There is no dropping on that.
Yeah, and in Palo Alto, we can actually check which route is basically selected using test routing fib lookup command. So I put that in the chat. It will actually give you. It will check the fib, fast information base, which is the final table which will be looked by the Palo Alto, and give you that for the destination IP, let's say 8.8.8, which path it will take. So this command is often useful um, to know which route is being taken,
Definitely.
which I put in the chat. With this, you can also test
Yes,
in
seen that.
that. Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Yeah, Jay. Go ahead.
Like in a scenario in a active failover,
Hmm.
so there is a condition like a session owner and session setup. So
Correct.
like means firewall 2 processing traffic up to layer 3 or layer 4, and layer 7 is done by
The
the
owner.
firewall 1,
Right.
active firewall, active primary. So that firewall active primary transfer the means final packet to the destination. So doesn't that asymmetric routing create issues, or means how does that work actually?
So the active is the solution to fix asymmetry actually, right? So we prefer to use active only in right typically in asymmetric routing scenarios only. So where you think your packets can come in an asymmetric route, right? You would typically go with an active scenario. That means even if the packet comes through any of the firewalls, it does not becomes a problem. The logic right is that there is a concept called a session setup and a session owner device. So session setup, right, and this can have the session setup and session owner, right? There are two logics involved in active where you need to tell what type of logic to use. So session setup device means the firewall that is going to do the slow path, or which is going to install that session for you, right? Which is going to install that session on the session table. That means the firewall which is going to handle the first packet of that session. So it could be a TCP SYN packet or the first packet of the UDP flow, right? Whatever it is. So the first packet, who will handle it and who will install it to the firewall session table, right? And then the session owner logic is the firewall which is going to do the layer 7 processing. That means the fast path, the app ID, the CTD, and the transmission of the packet out, and also taking care of traffic logging, right? These functionalities who will do, right? Which firewall will take care of the complete fast path and above, right? That means from the first packet itself, right? If there is fast path evaluation that is needed, that will do it. From there on, the second packet onwards, it will completely be dealt with by the session owner only. So there are two logics, right? Session setup device and the session owner device. And the selection of this device, you have a ton of options there. So there is a primary and a secondary device logic, with device ID 0 being the primary, 1 being the secondary. Then you have right the load sharing algorithms, right? Or which is known as the IP hash, the IP modulo function that you use to basically load share the traffic. So some traffic, firewall 1 might be the session owner, right? From some traffic, right, firewall 2 might be the session owner, right? Or the session setup can be firewall 1, session setup can be firewall 2. So this all depends on what type of configuration that you have done, right? It might be based on IP modulo or IP hash. So it runs a proprietary modulo function and right takes the source and destination's IP of that packet and does a modulo operation. So just giving an example, uh, the the active um, the odd number, right, would be handled by firewall 1, or even numbers, right, could be handled by firewall 2, right? This is what typically you would see, right, when you use the IP modulo function and all. So the source and destination IPs are taken, right? It's just calculated by a modulo division, right, the reminder function. So and it sees, right, I mean, just giving a vague explanation, right? So exactly how that works, right, specifically, right, local to Palo Alto, right? They don't give out what exactly how that algorithm works, right? Nobody wants to give out those proprietary info. So based on that, right, firewall 1 or firewall 2 can become a session setup or session owner. The whole point of active active is that you have a third link, which is known as a packet forwarding link. So it doesn't matter where the packet lands on, right? Let it land on firewall 1 or firewall 2. The firewalls will have the session table synchronization done through the HA2 link, and it looks into the table and sees, okay, this session, right, is already installed. The owner is firewall 1. So firewall 1, if it has got it, he will process it and send it out. In case firewall 2 had got this packet, he would see the owner is firewall 1, and he would just forward this packet to firewall 1 using the HA3 link, right? Forward this packet to firewall 1, he will handle it and he'll send it out. So it doesn't matter which firewall gets it. Ultimately, the session owner device will get it through the HA3 link. They'll exchange packets between them, right, through the HA3 link. It's like sorting out letters, right? You're getting a lot of letters, right? And you have two postmen, right, or just sorting it out. And based on, right, their location, they are giving it to each other. That's it.
But anything change like six tuples like source ID, destination ID, source zone, destination zone means like when a firewall 2 process the traffic, then layer 7 processing it gives to firewall 1. So anything change when firewall 1 process traffic, or these things remain same?
It would
Like
be the same. The
okay, so
six tuple
destination
info
would
would.
think that this packet is processed by firewall 2, not firewall 1.
I mean, so there is no firewall 1 and firewall 2 logic, right? For the client who is sending it, he has a gateway, single gateway IP, right?
Okay.
And that
Yeah.
might be floating, right? I mean,
Yes,
there are
floating. Yes.
multiple deployments, right? That IP would be floating between these two devices, right? So it might be an ARP load sharing, or it might be the L3, right, floating IP. That means you have two IPs which are floating. So you give two gateways to two of your subnets, like that. But from a client's perspective, there is only one IP as the gateway. So that IP owner, whoever is the firewall, who is the IP owner, he will be getting that packet, right? And it is not going to see, ultimately the client is not talking to the firewall. Client is talking to some server, right, after the firewall, right? The
Yeah,
only
right.
thing that the client is bothered about is the packet should be going out, reply should come to him. That's it.
Yeah, and also that's why we configuring that firewall in active, because we let two firewall know this is an active setup, and you should be the session owner. You should be the session the other one. So the packet exchange happen through that third link is H3,
Okay.
so they know how to do that, because L4 info is needed for one firewall, but L7 that other firewall doesn't need an L4, which basically source IP, destination IP does not need it, right? Just need that content of that to do the inspection.
Right. The session table anyway is synchronized between them, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Already HA2 link is there. So whenever firewall 1 installs the session, firewall 2 knows about it. Similarly, if firewall 2 installs the session, firewall 1 knows about it. So the routing table, sorry, the
Yeah.
session table is always in sync. So it doesn't
Yeah.
matter where it lands. At the end of the day, whoever is the owner is going to do the LSAN processing and send it out and take care of the traffic logging.
We can also see what's happening when you do a packet diagnostic, at least a flow basic. If you enable it into firewall, if it's a test firewall, you can see, hey, this is session setup, I'm sending to a different firewall, which is the uh, you know which meant to be doing the session setup. Both you can see in the both firewalls, literal in English.
Right. Definitely, active is a difficult or little complex thing to digest, right? Initially, it is little difficult to understand it, right? You need to a little bit think on it, right? What is the practical use cases, right? I mean, I am not a super fan of active, to be honest. Why? Because from the other end, that is from a troubleshooting perspective, it is a nightmare, right? You don't know
True.
where the packet is going, right? It is coming through firewall 1, right, going to firewall 2, right? So let's say first packet is coming to firewall 1, then it finds that setup is the firewall 2, it goes to session firewall 2, then it is identify owner is the other guy, again going back to firewall 1, going out. So that's a nightmare altogether, right, from a troubleshooting standpoint.
That's
So
true. I mean, even the doc says, if you want to troubleshoot, make the
primary
same firewall
primary
as yeah,
right,
make the same firewall, do the same
both,
both the
right?
jobs, then
So when,
troubleshoot. Maybe the problem is on the other firewall. Good knows.
true, true, absolutely right. I think for active troubleshooting, right, the Palo Alto itself suggests you change the session setup and session owner logic both to primary device. There is an option called primary device. So whichever firewall has the device ID 0, that is a primary device. So if you select both session setup and session owner as primary device, that means all packets will be handled by firewall 1. That's it. Right? Firewall 2 will not handle it. So right, that is you do, what you do that configuration, and then you troubleshoot, and then right, once you have taken the diagnostics, you packet captures and all, then you can right put it back the way. Why? Because it's much easier to troubleshoot, right? And typically for active the problems might be with one firewall, right? And through the other firewall it might work. The other possibility is the HE3 link has a problem, right? MTU problems there, or a blockage in a HE3 link, right? Which is most commonly what I've seen. HE3 link is very sensitive to right MTUs, right, and any packet drops and all. So if something happens to that link, right, it can affect the traffic altogether.
Most people also think it's a false thinking. I mean, since both firewalls are working, we can fully load both the firewalls at the same time, so more traffic can be processed, which is absolutely wrong again. Because it has to be shared basically. If one traffic takes full load, one firewall taking full loads, it's gonna collapse. I mean, both full load that meant to be handled by both the firewalls, when goes down, the other firewall has to take, right, then it will collapse for sure.
Right? Definitely, right? So,
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Vinit, Sajin.
right.
No problems.
All right, right. Any questions, guys? Apart from this, I think right.
I think
People.
Pula, we have Prabhat, he's a private member again.
Okay.
Uh, Chandrasekhar and one guy is Pula. If its name is different, sorry. Do you have any questions or anybody? Uh,
No.
Open to any questions.
All right. Right. I think then we are good, right? So you
Yeah.
know how to reach out to us, right? If there are any questions, right, feel free to reach out, right? And yeah, definitely, right. Or as usual, right? Uh, for any YouTube channel, right? As everyone would say, subscribe, right? And
Correct.
like right. So definitely, what we're trying to do is right. We're going to create a content that is easily digestible for everyone. So not all videos might be public, right? There are a lot of private videos that we give right access to the private right members. So those trainings that we give, right, it's specifically to them, and snippets of them are made public, so that ultimately, right, in the due time, right, we create a repository which contains right lot of useful training that anybody can use at any point of time, right? So these things should be available publicly. I know that there are ton of videos that you would find on configuring, but not on too much into troubleshooting, right? And on an advanced level, I am sure that there is no such videos available. So I'm trying to create, or we are trying to create that kind of right repository where people can refer, right, to like a single point of right solution for all kinds of advanced VA issues, right? And
Mm.
we want to keep this community live and create a collection of engineers, right, or a group of engineers whom we can actually communicate to talk about problems on the field, right? We have people, right, actually reaching out to us from support issues, right? People might be stuck on their production network with a problem, right? They might be asking us, right, with specific questions, right, asking us how they should proceed. It can be from a support company, or it can be from attack environment even, right? So we're trying to help, right, and making sure that people are able to succeed on this journey, right? So that is our aim. Ultimately, right, this is a business, so right, we need to think on that, right, the effort and the time put in. That's it, right? But we're looking, right, for fresh minds, right, trying to build up right that reputation. I hope you can understand that, right? So if you have any question, right, you can always reach out to the info that Sajjan has already shared, right? And you can also connect to us, right, on LinkedIn, right? Definitely.
Yeah.
And we want to make the circle big, right? And
Yes. So
that's
we
it.
actually, as Vineet said, we are actually trying to build a community. Uh, so basically, if you can join that WhatsApp group or Telegram group, we can make it, because we are being restrictive because we just started. We are starting with an impact, because based on the previous batch. So if you can help us and share these links to make more people, to we can reach more people when you share these. Also join and subscribe it, then we'll be we can we can put more time on it. That's basically the intention. If more people are there, then it will be helpful for us and them too as well.
Right, definitely. All right, I think right that sums it up. Right, I don't want to be this as working as in a marketing stand, but yeah, at least right. Be part of the Telegram group, right? Anyone can join. Be part of it, right? If you have question, please raise it, right? I want people asking questions, right? Getting their answers, right? Which you might not be getting from the internet, right? So all of that, we're happy to help that, right? So feel free to reach out to us, man. Thank you for your time on the Sunday evening, right? Great
Yeah.
seeing you, right? So people who are part of the private batch, right? Let's see you on next week, right? We'll be actually kicking it off. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Vinit. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
guys.
Vinit. Thank you, Sachin.
So,
Yep.
Vinit, from next Sunday, what will be the topics we'll be covering? So, if we have,
We'll be starting off with an introduction as such, right?
okay,
On the
okay,
actual packet processing, right? So
all right.
we'll start from the basics, right? We want to keep it very simple from the starting, so that everyone, right, is able to pick it up. So non tag folks also should be able to understand. That's why.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm having a trouble in a lab part. I haven't done in the lab because my credentials came late after the panel.
Okay.
So that's
Sure, sure. No worries, right? We'll take care of that, right? And feel free to raise any questions, right, on the channel, right, or on directly on the session. Yeah.
all right. All right. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank,
Thanks. Thank
thank
you.
you, guys. Right. Bye
Thank you.
bye. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Okay.
Yeah.